Welcome back to the channel, and man oh man, do we have a lot to talk about when it comes to X-Men 97.
To me, my X-Men.
The first season of the beloved show is over, and it was a dream to have this show come out for all of us 90s fans of the X-Men animated series. In my opinion, this is exactly what Marvel needed to bring the fans back after a very lackluster Phase 4. We really haven't had anything great since Spider-Man No Way Home or Endgame, and X-Men was exactly what we were asking for. And so today I want to jump into the finale and what this means for the future of X-Men and also for the future of Marvel. So spoilers ahead for those who have not seen it, and let's get started. So in the finale, we had the X-Men pitted against each other between Charles Xavier and his students and Magneto, who had recruited some of the X-Men over, like Rogue and Sunspot. They decided to go over to Magneto's side because they had experienced some things. Not only did Rogue experience the death of Remy, but Sunspot experienced betrayal from his family to the Sentinels. And they were angry. They agreed with Magneto's approach, and so they decided to go against him. And culminating in this epic battle between Magneto's forces and Charles Xavier and the X-Men, we get the asteroid M crashing to Earth, and the X-Men do all they can to save Earth and humans from this asteroid, and they disappear through time. And so at the end of the show, we are essentially missing all of the X-Men that we know. And, you know, we see that scene at the end between Bishop and Forge, where they're looking at this big poster on the wall that has all the faces of the X-Men, either presumed dead or missing. And so we assume that the next season is going to be all about finding the X-Men and where they are. But for those who have seen the finale, our favorite characters have been transported through time in different areas. And so first, we have Jean and Scott. They have ended up way up in the future, and they run into some cult leaders. They run into their younger son, Nathan. So this is Cable once he had gone to the future. He's probably around like 10, 11 years old where we see him in this. And so we're going to get more of that interaction. And then we have Xavier with the rest of the X-Men, where they ended up in 3000 BC Egypt. And who do they run into? They ran into the man who would eventually become Apocalypse. And so really some stuff set up here for us to get in season 2. But, you know, really the thing that I want to dive into the most with this show is the characters and their relationships. Because honestly, the character development here was top notch and really is what was the heart of this show. And who better to talk about than Charles Xavier and Magneto's friendship? You know, pretty much through any X-Men iteration, the comics, the movies, Charles Xavier and Magneto, you know, started being friends. They had this vision that mutants would be accepted by humanity. But as we all know, we get to a point to where Charles has very different ideas of how to go about that. And Magneto pretty much just wants to like destroy, and like he goes some pretty aggressive ways. Xavier is all about compassion and, you know, leading by actions, so that humanity would see that they are not a threat, that they are, you know, good people, that they are there to help. And so one of the things that I love about this finale is that we end up in the situation where Xavier had no choice than to stop Magneto from, you know, killing all of them. And he penetrated Magneto's mind, something that he would never do before. It was drastic measures. And so the entire last episode, we get Xavier and Magneto inside Magneto's mind. And you get memories of them when they first met and they found out each other were mutants. You get kind of reminiscence of the trauma that Magneto had experienced through like losing his parents during Nazi Germany. And then you kind of get the whole situation where he is slowly losing his mind and Xavier is trying to bring him back, trying to remind him of who he is and what he set out to do, that he doesn't have to destroy all of humanity to accomplish what he's wanting to do. And so during that time, we got some really cool like shots where, you know, you're kind of getting Magneto where he's recollecting on, you know, past mistakes. And one of those things that we see a shot of is Rogue on a boat in the water. It's a storm. And next to her is Magneto's 3 children. So we have Quicksilver, we have Scarlet Witch, and we have Polaris. And so it was that moment where you kind of see Magneto going through these stages, realizing all the things that he had done wrong, especially with the relationship that he doesn't really have with his children. But what I really love is that we focused it on kind of the psyche between these two characters. And I'm really looking forward to what happens next, because X-Men 97 really brought these characters, their relationship together in that last couple episodes, more than the 90s show really ever did. We always knew that they had a friendship. We always knew they had common ideas, but, you know, just didn't go about it the same way. But X-Men 97 really upped the ante on that. One of the other relationships that I really love in this show was between Scott, Jean, and Cable, their son Nathan. Watching the X-Men movies, the Fox X-Men movies, I love them. They're great. I grew up with them. But they really painted Scott Summers in a wrong light. He was kind of a jerk in those movies. I didn't really like him. And so in this cartoon, in the animated series, Cyclops is a true leader. And so you really get to see that emotion that we really haven't before in live action versions. And what I loved about the finale is that, Scott is coming to grips with the fact that Madeline Pryor is technically Nathan's mother. And Jean wants to so badly be that mother figure for Nathan. And then Cable's kind of gripping with that too, where he's realizing that, Jean is someone who really cares for me, despite her not really being my mother, but she's connected to my mother. And so what I really love about this is that right before Jean and Scott and the rest of the X-Men thought that they were going to potentially perish by trying to stop Asteroid M, they projected themselves into the diner where Cable was. He was injured, and they had this really nice conversation. And the best thing about this was that Scott pretty much just said, I don't want to be what my father was. And what his father was is, his parents disappeared. His father kind of abandoned him. Scott ended up in the foster system. He didn't want to repeat those mistakes, even though he kind of had already repeated some of the past by letting, Nathan go off into the future to save himself. But what he wanted to do differently here is he wanted to tell his son goodbye. He wanted to tell his son that he loved him. And I really enjoyed that moment. It was a really nice family moment. And what was even cooler is that Cable said, in the future, my parents are talked about how great, people talk about how great they are, but it doesn't really do them justice because seeing them in person is so much better. And I thought that was really touching because, this is someone who really had not lived a life with his parents. And in these moments of battling Magneto with Scott and Jean, he really saw who his parents were and really the character of these characters. And that was really special. So love that relationship. Hoping to see more with them in the future. With season 2, we're going to get them interacting with a young Nathan in the future. And so I really think that may change some of the dynamics that they didn't have before. One of the other things that I want to talk about is we ended this season not knowing the fate of Wolverine. Now, obviously Wolverine can heal. He's not going to die, but his healing properties are moving very slowly. And, we saw Magneto in episode 9 rip the adamantium out of his body. And this is very similar to the comic book storyline Fatal Attractions, when Magneto ripped the adamantium out of Wolverine's body and he found out that, his claws, his powers, they're actually like pure bone. And so the adamantium that was an experiment. It was put on top of him. And so that's why there were metal claws. And so what we're probably going to see in season 2, once Wolverine comes back and kind of heals from the dead, we're probably going to see him go off on his own, just like in that Fatal Attractions comic book series where, he goes out to find his origins and he goes out on his own to try to figure that out. And so I'm expecting that to happen in season 2. And then one of the other things that was a big tease at the end, once we got the shots of where the team ended up, we got that last final shot in the credits where Apocalypse, he was picking up dust from the ground and he kind of had that smile on his face. And so we see that Apocalypse is going to come back. It's been a while since we've seen him, since the 90s show. And so really looking forward to him being the big bad and the X-Men kind of culminating, getting out of the different time periods that they're in and really going against Apocalypse. And really hoping that we see Xavier and Magneto team up as well. And that means Magneto is no longer trying to just kill humanity. One of the other things that this show did really well, specifically in the finale, was the cameos. And not in a way that was fan servicey. And, a lot of other places do that. But they really used these cameos to show that there's a shared universe, a bigger universe, but did not use them in a way that would take away from the X-Men. And so I really want to just go through these cameos because they're so great. We see Captain America and Iron Man with President Kelly in the midst of Asteroid M coming down to Earth, and they're bracing for impact. And you get to see these two great characters. The 90s Iron Man from the 90s TV show, so that was really cool. It wasn't the MCU one that we're used to. This was the Iron Man that wasn't really popular back then, but it's cool that they're bringing him back. We also got to see Daredevil on the ground in New York fighting in front of Josie's Diner. But not only did we get to see Daredevil, we got to see Cloak and Dagger, which is two underrated characters. For those of you who were fans of the Hulu TV show, Cloak and Dagger, I'm sure this was really special for you to see. But, it was really cool to see Daredevil, who we haven't seen in animated form since the Spider-Man animated series. And so really hoping to see more of that soon. We also get to see Doctor Strange. And what was cool here, he was in the midst of surgery, using his powers. And this isn't the MCU version that, stopped being a surgeon after he got his powers and went on to be the Sorcerer Supreme. No, he still has his powers and he's using it to help people. He's still a surgeon. And I thought it was cool just watching like the room shake because everything going on around the world, but he's still in the midst of surgery. Cool call out. The next person we get to see is Black Panther, but this isn't T'Challa. This is T'Chaka, his father. And so we see T'Chaka with his guard, and they're really ready to fight the Sentinels. He's calling in the President Kelly, telling him not to shoot rockets at Asteroid M. And so really cool to see him. I'm assuming we're going to see more of that in the future. Also, we get to see Silver Samurai, which is a popular Wolverine villain. He's standing there watching the shockwaves go through the earth when Magneto does his thing, and that was a cool shot too. Like I mentioned, we got to see Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Polaris, Magneto's children. So hoping maybe we get a House of M storyline later down the road. Time will tell. We also got to see Psylocke with several other familiar characters. And so for those of you fans of her, I'm sure that was really cool. And then the one that was really neat to me, and really the things that Morph did throughout the entire show, was he would morph into famous characters. So in episode 9, we got to see him as Hulk. And this one, we got to see him as Mr. Fantastic. Really hoping to see the Fantastic Four come into play. They had their 90s animated show as well. So love the Fantastic Four. Would love to see them, especially with the new live action movie coming. I would be shocked if they didn't do something with them. And then last but certainly not least, the one I wanted to shout out the most is we saw Peter Parker and MJ and also Flash Thompson standing there watching the television of the asteroid coming down. And the reason this is so cool to me is because the Spider-Man animated series was also one that did not get to finish its run in the 90s. It ended with Peter trying to go off and find MJ in the interdimensional realm. And so what this is showing is that he found MJ, they ended up back together, happy ending. And so I'm really hoping that this shines hope into the fact that we may get a Spider-Man animated series revival, and we get to see what happened with Peter and Mary Jane there. Fingers crossed, would love it. But, at the end of the day, this show was a huge win for Marvel, a huge win for fans who have been really clamoring for things that had great storytelling, great characters. I think Marvel should listen. So Marvel, if you are listening, please do more of this. Please do more stories that honor the fan base, honor the comics. Please do more animated series, maybe a shared universe that brings back all those characters that I mentioned into their own shows and ties it together into its own little animated MCU. We're getting X-Men in live action moving forward. We're going to have Secret Wars, but I really want you guys to tie this together. I know the fans really want you to tie this together. So please do more, because this is a win. We're excited for season 2. So let me know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.